Swipe right to vote for president. Microsoft's new chatbot is just as creepy and amazing as you can imagine. And Jonathan Strickland is here to tell us how to shoot down a drone with a cyber rifle. All that and a lot more on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1476, recorded Wednesday, March 23rd, 2016. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Igloo Software. Igloo is an intranet you'll actually like. It connects people with the information they need to do their best work. Try it for free at igloosoftware.com/twit or sign up for a live demo to see it in action.
And by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Right now, get free expedited FedEx shipping when you go to ring.com/TNT.
And by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100+ job sites, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT.
Hello and welcome to Tech News Today. This is the show where we talk about technology news with people who have clear eyes and full hearts about technology.
And can't lose.
And they can't lose.
Yes.
I am Megan Morrone.
And I am Jason Howell. Did you say at Megan Morrone?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I'm here.
okay.
I'm not on Twitter.
I heard it. I filled in the Twitter.
No, I am here. I spent a lot of time on Twitter today, but I
You
am
did.
here.
You did. I did too. We're going to talk about why. But before we get to that, we got to introduce into the show, welcoming back Jonathan Strickland from How Stuff Works. How's it going, Jonathan?
It's going great. I'm ready to join in and stop making sense.
Oh,
that's a Talking Heads reference.
I like it.
Yes.
Same as it ever was. Kara, sorry, it was a pre-show joke that I made that Kara, I guess, was born after the Talking Heads existed. So I'm sorry, Kara. Next time I'll try and throw in a Snapchat joke for you.
Oh, thank you so much. You can do Spice Girls. That's like my
Oh, okay.
That's her jam.
That's, yeah.
Cool. Spice Girls. All right, I've got that noted, and we will do that.
All right. Well, let's get to the news. What do you think?
All right, yeah, let's stop talking about music.
Facebook has announced that it has dropped support for BlackBerry. Representatives from BlackBerry say they're very disappointed. And writing in Forbes, Ewan Spence says, "Good night and good luck, BlackBerry, because, quote, without Facebook, your smartphone platform is effectively dead." You guys agree with this?
I think BlackBerry was effectively dead in 2007, but I mean they have less than 1% of the market share, and so you can argue this is kind of one of those circular things that the reason why Facebook is dropping support is because the potential audience is so low that the return on investment isn't enough to justify the work they would need to do to continue supporting BlackBerry. So it's really, this could just be the sign of its sort of death rattle, as opposed to this is what killed it.
Yeah, I mean this is more a more a comment around BlackBerry's OS, BlackBerry 10, as opposed to BlackBerry as a company. BlackBerry, of course, has their Android device, the Priv, and they've made many comments to the effect of the possibility that kind of their future in many ways lies in the world of Android. And I mean, as far as this is concerned, they're not just killing the app for BlackBerry, they're also killing the API behind it. So any third-party kind of services or anything that feeds into the BlackBerry OS, Facebook streams, all that kind of stuff, is pretty much killing it all outright, which sounds like pretty much death of Facebook on BlackBerry 10 until you realize, like, at least for me, I don't have Facebook app installed. I use it through a browser and I'm perfectly fine. So if you've got a browser, BlackBerry 10 users, you've still got access, and I would argue you might have as good of access because their mobile website is pretty good.
Yeah, when I look at the battery usage stats on my iPhone, and it when I see how much Facebook sucks up, it makes me want to just use it on the web too. But
yeah, a lot of people are moving over to the web for that. So, and also, by the way, real quick, BlackBerry 10 can run Android apps to a certain degree. So if you really want to, download Facebook Lite or whatever, the Android app version of Facebook Lite, and run it on BlackBerry 10. There you go. You've got options. It's okay. Pebble CEO Eric Migalkovsky, sorry about that, Eric, told Tech Insider that the company will be laying off 40 employees this week as 25% of its staff, saying, quote, money is pretty tight these days, end quote. Yeah, that sounds about right for today. Pebble also lost Itai von Schack. She is the head of product and the person behind Pebble's timeline interface. Now, Mijalkovsky blames the slowdown in venture capital. It's kind of what he was talking about when he said kind of, money is tight, at least partially here. Pebble was able to raise $28 million in additional funding over the past 8 months, which he says was just very hard to come by. And of course, their Kickstarter campaign that, what was it? It was $20 million in 2015. So they have some money to work with here. I think they're just kind of refocusing their efforts, it sounds like.
I fell for that Kickstarter hype. I ordered a Pebble in 2015, and then my Apple Watch came first, and I got the Pebble, and it was
the Pebble stood no chance.
But I gave it to, yeah, I know. I gave it to Tony Wang. He likes it because he's on Android. But yeah, I think they suffered from hype. What do you think, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I did not support it on Kickstarter, but I got a chance to see a Pebble at the CES following their successful Kickstarter campaign. They had a small room set aside from one of the convention halls, and I went and checked it out. And I was so impressed that I actually pre-ordered one. So they still weren't for sale yet. They were on pre-order. And I ended up getting a Kickstarter edition red Pebble watch. I guess they made more of the red ones than they actually had Kickstarter orders for that particular color. I love the Pebble. What I think is interesting is seeing, money's really tight. Venture capital is just not rolling in. And I'm thinking at some point you have to have a company, if you're selling a product, you have to have a company that can support itself through the sale of that product. Just depending upon venture capital over and over seems a little scary.
Right. Well, I mean, they keep kind of going back to the Kickstarter well, which, I mean, hey, $20 million is nothing to sneeze at in 2015. 2015, for their campaign that time. So they're making okay money, but you're right. At some point, your products have to sell themselves and be able to float the company. It sounds like that's not happening. And I don't know, maybe it talks to kind of the bigger elephant in the room is just that wearables in general, are they not as hot as people once thought they would be? Are they not the next big thing? Fitbit stocks tanking, obviously Pebble, downsizing, Apple Watch price drop. Now that price drop could just be making room for another one, but I would guess that if the Apple Watch is selling like crazy numbers, the price wouldn't drop. So, I don't know. What do you think? Is the wearables market shrinking, and do people not care as much about it?
I don't. Go ahead.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just jumping in.
Do it.
I was just going to say that I don't know that the wearables market is shrinking. I think it's saturated. I think there's a glut of wearables out there, many of which are directly competing in the same space, whether it's activity trackers, sleep trackers, smartwatches, whatever they might be, even the ones that are, the multi-tool approach where they do everything. I think there's so many out there that's where the big challenge is. How do you stand out in the crowd, and how do you avoid the fact that I think the audience for wearables is still relatively small compared to smartphones and tablets, and there's a ridiculous amount of choice. So I think we're drowning is what's happening.
I agree with that. And I think that the Pebble has to be cheaper. I just don't think they can sell it for the price that they were originally selling it. And they said that they want to, like you said, they want to compete with Fitbit. But Fitbit is really competing with the Apple Watch as well. And I mean, just one data point I have, Leo had a Fitbit Surge that he gave me, and I had it in my backpack in San Francisco this weekend. Someone broke into my car, took the backpack out, spread everything around, and left this $275 Fitbit Surge.
Fitbit Surge.
They didn't even want it. They, like a person that was, they didn't even want it. Maybe they were afraid they were going to be tracked by GPS, which I guess they could be because it does have GPS in it. But yeah, I think it is saturated, and I don't think they can charge that much for it. But I do think the Apple Watch price drop only has to do with the fact that they're going to come out with another one.
Yeah. if it was selling like crazy, don't you think?
I will
keep
say-
the price at the thing? I don't know.
They dropped that price 2 days after I bought my wife one.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any sort of like, if you buy within the blah, blah, blah?
No, because I kind of bought it off of Amazon from one of their partner sites. Yeah.
Well, I think
that's on me.
I know that always happens.
Yeah.
But I think they want people to buy more bands. Like I just bought this $50 band. You know, you might not buy this extra band if you were, it's like, oh, I saved $50. I will go ahead and spend $50. And
Sure.
This band is made of nylon. I think they're probably making some money off of it.
Yeah, except not from you because you might be
No,
sending
I think
it
I'm
back.
returning it because I don't like it. But that's a personal preference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on. Tinder wants you to swipe the vote. You can now use the popular dating app to express your political views because I guess people didn't know they could use social media to express their political views. This is interesting. It's a partnership with Rock the Vote, kind of like back in our day with MTV. I think that's the idea. It's not the dating part. You really just are swiping with what you agree with, issues you agree with. I've seen several other apps that are doing this. There's a voter app that does the same thing. Sean Parker of Napster has a similar app called Brigade app. What do you guys think about this?
Well, having not used Tinder, but knowing enough about the platform and kind of knowing how the app works, I actually think it's a pretty darn good fit. Being kind of given a number of issues and saying, yes, I agree with this, no, I don't, going through the whole list and then being, given, okay, well, this is the candidate that you obviously side with based on these data points and your selections, then great. I think that's actually a pretty great use of the platform. I don't know if in the end what it's telling you is you should hook up with Donald Trump or you should vote for Donald Trump. That I suppose that's up to the users of Tinder to decide. What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think it's a clever way of getting this type of information out to a broader young audience. I mean, I've certainly seen the equivalent of this on Facebook, where it's like essentially a Facebook quiz type thing to find out which of the candidates most closely matches your own personal philosophy. The same sort of thing, very simple. I think it's a list of 10 questions that you either swipe right or left on this Tinder approach. But I think it's good to let people kind of get an idea of who running for president most closely represents their own personal views, and especially in a place where we don't consume as much of our news on television anymore, even going to giant news sites. I mean, that's been on the decline too. So you've got to find other ways to get that information to people so that you can then prompt them into acting and participating. And I mean, anything that gets that voter participation rate up in the United States is a good thing, in my opinion, short of allowing dead people to vote.
Which would be challenging, but
it works in Chicago.
I was going to say, I believe it. I believe it would happen.
Yeah,
there's also a place inside the app to register to vote and everything like that. So there are points of action that can be taken. That's all good. Better, raising awareness of potential new voters and getting people interested, number one, and active in the process, number two. I don't think there's any bad that comes out of that. So I like it. So my 9-year bet finally paid off. And by bet, I actually don't mean bet, because I mean more that I made a very random comment about a name and it sat dormant for years, only to surface today with the launch of the new paid journalism site Glendol. Kara, let's play that clip as, proof.
Henceforth, on Buzz Out Loud, refer to mashups as blend.
We could call them e-blends if you would, if you must.
A blendle. A blendle.
Blendle.
Yeah.
You're so smart, Jason.
Done. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, so unfortunately, I never bought the domain name blendle.com. Tom Merritt did, host of Buzz Out Loud, previous host of the show. And apparently the people behind this Blendle service contacted him looking to secure the URL when Tom then realized that he let it lapse long ago. So opportunity lost there, Tom. You can play next time. We'll see how you do. But this actually story isn't really about that. I just wanted to brag a little bit. The real story here is about how Glendol, a startup that launched here in the U.S. today, offers up articles from big publishers like New York Times, Wall Street Journal, The Economist, a bunch of others, charges per article starting at 9 cents each. So instead of subscribing to a publication for everything it writes, you know, and all of them for that. You can pick and choose the things that you want. They offer a refund on articles you don't actually like. What do we think about taking this kind of a la carte approach to articles? And I don't know. Do you want this, Jonathan?
Well, in a way, I do want it because I like the idea of being able to support the work of journalists that I depend upon to read really good investigative journalism and good reporting. I want to have a chance to support that because I find that the ads that are out today, well, I mean, we have the recent story about hackers inserting malware into ads so that they could infect computers. That just gives people more of a reason to use an ad blocker on their browser. It's really hard to tell an audience, hey, don't use an ad blocker. We need the money. If either your ads are corrupt and therefore will hurt the user's machine, and they end up having to deal with ransomware, or you have really obnoxious ads and you have to tell people, listen, just endure it because otherwise we can't afford to bring you the stuff you want. It's a tough sell. I like this approach where people will actually go and pay for the stuff they want. I do agree with someone I saw on Twitter who said, I think it'd be a huge blow to my self-esteem to find out someone paid 9 cents to read my work and then asked for a refund.
Yeah, that's true.
I know that.
I don't know if I'd want to know the refund rate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the site now. You still have to, it's in beta and you have to reserve your spot. What I don't understand, it says no paywalls, no ads, just stories you love. I don't know what they're calling a pay. I mean, I always understood a paywall to mean like you couldn't get through unless you paid. So I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. But yeah, I think, so you're paying 9 cents for some articles and some are
they're
free?
starting at 9. The actual article rate can go up from there up to I think like 45 cents depending on what the article is. But yeah, you find an article, you want to pay to get access to that full article without having a subscription to say the Wall Street Journal or whatever that you would normally have the paywall for access to everything. I think that's kind of what they're saying is instead of having
it's just a pay
single,
window.
You know,
it's a pay
large
window.
I suppose so.
Okay.
I suppose so.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I want to support journalists also. I don't think it's going to work. It hasn't in the past. I don't see this changing at all. I don't know.
No, it works for songs and Spotify. You know,
but for writing, like on journalism, like the New York Times, I feel like they've tried everything and nothing works.
Well, the nice thing is that they're rolling this out on a relatively small scale, and they can see if it works on that small scale. And obviously, if there's no indication that it would be a success, then they can rethink their business model because otherwise they'll just scale up with an unproven, approach. So. As someone who works online, as someone whose articles appear on a website where our revenue is largely from advertising, partners, it's something I'm interested in seeing work in some way because we have to fix this problem.
Sure.
We have to fix either the problem of how do we present ads in a way that are genuinely helpful to consumers so it's not something that immediately turns them off, or how do we find an alternative to that where we can afford to pay the rent and still do our job and not just go in a model where we're doing stuff out of the kindness of our hearts and sugar daddies giving us everything else we need. Because I don't have one of those.
Neither do I. Or the candy version either. Unfortunately, those were so good. So publishers actually make a pretty decent money off of it, or a decent amount off of this. 70% of the revenue goes to them. So depending on what they're charging, that's pretty decent. Like you said, bypassing things like the ad blockers and all that kind of stuff. So it's a different way of monetizing. Publishers who don't charge for the content on their site yet still participate end up making some money off their articles if someone decides to buy through this service. So I think for publishers, it's an interesting idea. And like you said, it is limited. They're actually limiting the user base in the US to 10,000 to start. So, they'll kind of take it slow, see how it goes there, and then open it up from there. I'm interested to see where it goes. partially because I'm invested in the word Glendol.
I totally get that. All right, well, here's an update to a story we did yesterday. Lauren Hawkinson came on from the Next Web, and she told us that the Nikkei, which was true, had reported the rumors that Nintendo was planning to kill off the Wii U. Now, today, Nintendo says these rumors were false and that the Wii U is not dead yet. I added the yet because they've said this before about that. They've said, oh, that news report was wrong, and then they acknowledged it later. This isn't the first time they've done this. So
I mean, yeah,
dead or not?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to still side on. Yeah, it's probably its legacy is probably close to nearing to an end. It does not sound like it's done very well, and if they are in fact working on a follow-up console. I don't know. I think those two kind of realities converge, and you end up with a console that's probably not going to have the same kind of life that the Wii had. What do you think, Jonathan?
I completely agree with you, Jason. I think that the Wii U was just one of those things that never caught on to the public consciousness. I think it followed too closely on the heels of the Wii, which already was, a distant third in the console wars. And it wasn't enough of a jump from the Wii to get people super excited about it. I think a lot of people also just didn't get what made it special.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is just what meant that you needed to get a hands-on experience to kind of understand what the potential was. And Nintendo has an issue that they've always had, which is that unless it's a first-party piece of software, something that Nintendo itself has developed, rarely do you ever see anything take full advantage of the hardware. And that just makes you feel like the thing you bought is taking up space. I mean, I think of all the people who rushed out and bought the Wii Fit when that first came out. I mean, it was impossible to find in stores. But after going through Wii Fitness, so few games actually took advantage of that piece of hardware that most people I know, the Wii Fit is leaned on the wall near the entertainment center, but has a nice thick layer of dust on it. And that sums up Nintendo's problem in a nutshell.
Right. Yeah. Oh, dating way back to, I remember on the original NES, what was the little robot guy? The
one that came out with the original NES, the Famicom robot. Yeah.
Yes.
That was they were using the robot to market to people because the home video game market had crashed in 1983, and most parents weren't ready to reinvest in another home video game system for their kids because the last one, the Atari 2600 ColecoVision days, it had so crashed and burned that everyone was hesitant to get into that game again. So Nintendo did it by including a robot with the NES set that originally came out.
Yeah, the Nintendo Rob. R-O-B.
Huh.
Yeah, that's it. And kind of nice to get a little game playing robot that only works on one game. Anyways, there you go. Okay, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like, of course, they're going to say that. No, that's not going to happen. Yes. And then eventually they'll say the opposite. So there we go. All right, coming up, Jonathan will explain to us how NASA plays with fire. But first, let's take a minute to thank the sponsor of this episode. That's Igloo Software. Anyone that's worked in a corporate environment knows how painful legacy intranets can be. The content that's always stale, the interface that's just kind of ugly, you don't want to use it, you can only access it while you're at work, all these limitations. Igloo is an intranet that you'll actually like. It's a cloud platform. It helps you share files, collaborate on documents, blog updates, coordinate calendars, manage projects. It's built using responsive design. Responsive is huge right now. It basically means that everything that you can do at your desk, you can now do on the go through any web browser, any screen size. And anyone can add content with drag and drop widgets. There's also a WYSIWYG editor there to get you going. Igloo also offers a variety of access, authentication, and identity services that can ensure only authorized users have access in private clouds over SSL with 256-bit encryption. Now, unlike other solutions, you can customize Igloo in ways that it'll fit your needs and work with your IT investments that you already have, like Salesforce, SharePoint, Active Directory. Coming soon, also file sharing solutions like Box and Dropbox. And it's great for growing companies, large enterprises, anyone that's looking to refresh their communication strategy. And it's used by government agencies as well as companies like Hulu, Inventive Health, American Family Insurance, and Ipswich. So you can try it for free to see what it's all about for you and potentially for your company. igloosoftware.com/twit. You can sign up for a live demo to see it in action. And when you sign up through our link, you can get your own Igloo for up to 10 people absolutely free for as long as you want. That's igloosoftware.com/TWIT. And we thank them for their support. All right, so Jonathan, you released a video today at howstuffworks.com that goes into some detail on how NASA is testing the effects of microgravity in space on sizable fires, large fires, an experiment that they're calling SAPPHIRE, as in spacecraft fire experiments. Would this be the first time NASA has studied the effects of a large-scale fire in microgravity?
Yes, exactly. So that is the purpose of this experiment. It's actually a series of 3. So the first one's happening this week, or starting this week. The spacecraft that is going to be the home of the massive fire in space is currently connected to the International Space Station, but that will not be the case when the experiment starts, for obvious reasons.
Oh, I don't understand what you're talking about. This sounds perfectly safe to me.
All right. So let me paint a picture for you, Jason.
Right.
So you have a space station in space. You have people in space station. You put fire in space station with people, and that equals bad.
I just thought it meant the place would be warm.
Plus, aren't their suits fireproof?
Yeah.
Pretty thick, right?
An excellent question that NASA also hopes to explore. So
Yeah, I'm sure.
So part of it is just the question of how fire behaves in microgravity in general. If you've ever seen pictures of some of the experiments they've done with matches and candles, you'll see that the flame around these tends to be more like a globe and less like the elongated teardrop shape we're used to seeing with like a candle flame. Keep in mind, in a microgravity environment, air behaves differently because normally we would see cold air sink down. A cold air is more dense than warm air. And so warm air rises up. But in microgravity, you don't have gravity for denser air to come down. So it actually does behave in a very different way. Now, trying to extrapolate what a large fire will do when all the information you have are about small fires. I think the biggest fire they ever experimented with was 10 centimeters in size, which is 4 inches. What they wanted to do was, let's see what happens if we set a much larger fire using a panel of material that's essentially cotton and fiberglass. And the panel will be housed inside of what amounts to a very large box that has 2 chambers. One chamber is the flow chamber. That's where the fire will happen. The other chamber is where all the sensors and cameras will be to record all the information. Now, this entire box will actually be inside the Cygnus spacecraft. That's a unmanned cargo vessel that was delivering scientific experiment equipment to the ISS. Once it's done, it will detach. It'll end up moving a safe distance away from the ISS, and then they'll activate the experiment. The way they do that is there's actually a wire that runs along one edge of the panel, and basic electrical engineering here, you run a current through the wire, it acts as a resistor, it heats up. Once it heats up past the ignition temperature for the material, it will catch fire. And what happens next? We don't know. That's why we're experimenting. So it's to see, will microgravity contain a large fire within a small space, a relatively small space, or will it continue to spread out? How will the heat expand? How intense will the flames be? Because even if you've created something that's supposed to be fire resistant, it may be that temperatures reach a point where that resistance is no longer an effective barrier between a person and the fire. So this first experiment is really all about seeing how fire itself will behave in a microgravity environment. Experiment number 2 is going to be when they bring up other materials that are representative of the stuff that you would have in spacecraft and space suits. So that's when they check and see, all right, in microgravity, exactly how fireproof is this fireproof suit? Will it protect astronauts? And the whole purpose of this is that if, in fact, we do start sending people to Mars, for example, that's an 8-month trip one way. And you have to be sure that you account for every potential catastrophe that you can anticipate so that the astronauts have the best chance of getting to their destination safely. And then, of course, when they return, that's another 8-month trip back. Wow. So when you look at most of the stuff that we humans have built, we've put it through extensive fire testing in the environments that they were meant to exist within. That's not the case with spacecraft. So that's why this is so important.
So realistically, when will I be able to roast marshmallows in space, in a spaceship?
You know, I wasn't going to tell you this, but told that a week from Thursday.
Okay.
That's some super on the DL from NASA. Is there any way that this test could go horribly awry? I mean, there sounds like there's enough kind of ambiguity in the process, or maybe in the results, that it could very. I mean, one of the outcomes could possibly be a gigantic, out of control fire that they can't stop.
Well, the worst case scenario, truly, as far as I can tell, because you've got the unmanned cargo ships separated from the International Space Station. So even the worst case scenario means that you lose an unmanned cargo ship, which is going to break up and burn apart upon reentry to the Earth's atmosphere anyway. These were designed as one-use vehicles. So it's not like we're going to lose a vessel that we had planned to send up again. But what could happen is if you had a fire that was so intense that it actually caused damage to the sensors, then we might not have any usable data from that. That'd be the biggest catastrophe, meaning that we don't get the information we actually wanted to get. It would also make us seriously rethink what we need to do to prevent any kind of fire situation aboard spacecraft, because if that's the case, you really know that fire is intense and dangerous. Assuming everything works well, the fire will burn maybe up to 2.5 hours. That's how long the experiment is expected to take. Really, that's from beginning to end, testing everything from how long does it take heat to dissipate? How does the heat dissipate? Does it just spread out evenly throughout the chamber? What happens there? And then for the next several days, the sensors and cameras, all that equipment, the computer aboard will send information down to Earth. And after about a week, after all the data has been collected, they will deorbit the Cygnus, which means allow it to go into Earth's atmosphere, burn up, and whatever's left would hit the Pacific Ocean.
Fascinating stuff.
Yes.
My final question. Are we about to find out something that is going to invalidate hundreds of science fiction movies that try to recreate events, like catastrophic events in space?
That's an excellent question. I think we are going to see something where we learn that fire in space behaves in a very different way than the way we would typically see in science fiction films. So maybe the next time when I finally get my pitch idea for Event Horizon 2 to be accepted, I'll have the right way for fire to spread in that environment.
That'll be like your tagline, like the only science fiction movie where fire is real, or or something along that. It
behaves according to physics.
Yes.
Right, because there was a scene from The Martian where he's trying to burn the rocket fuel to make water, and there was the big explosion. And I don't know if that's how fire would work.
Mars is a little different. Yeah, Mars is about 1/3 the gravity of Earth, so The Martian did not depict properly in the movie, because it didn't look like he was dealing with 1/3 of Earth's gravity in that movie.
Yeah.
That's understandable considering where they shot it.
Hawaii,
True.
right? Hawaii, which has regular gravity.
Good point.
All right.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you, Jonathan. That's very cool.
Earlier, we talked about how dead people shouldn't vote. Also, we think some young people shouldn't vote. In yesterday's discussion regarding Apple's case with the FBI, it was mentioned that Becky's second grade class, one of her children's second grade class, sided with Apple. And some folks on our YouTube page for yesterday's episode brought up some interesting points. Robert Seals said, I can almost guarantee that if all the second graders sided with Apple, which I do also, that the teacher sided with Apple first.
Very good point.
And yes, and Nicole Zechner followed up by pointing out that the teacher, consciously or not, possibly framed the discussion to lead the students to that conclusion. I also said that's why second graders don't vote. I think it's obvious that I side with Apple, but yes, I think that second graders would side with Apple because second graders like iPads and iPhones.
That's also true. Hey, even kindergartners like iPads and tablets and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's kind of neat that topics like this are even discussed in a second grade classroom. Like you talk about, there are topics of like personal safety and all this kind of stuff that's important to talk to young children about. I mean, kids more and more are spending so much time online at an even younger age. So even the fact that it's complicated for us to talk about, but the fact that this topic is even being breached in a second grade classroom, I'm just kind of fascinated by that. Like, on one hand, it makes a whole lot of sense. On another hand, I'm like, well, I hope it's being treated thoughtfully and well in that regard. But
well, last week we talked to Roberto Baldwin, and he had a great point that I haven't stopped thinking about. He said, we were talking about tracking your kids, like whether you have Find My iPhone on your children or, schools tracking the kids, if they're using Google Classroom, like the teachers keep saying, like, we know everything you're doing. So, and as kids, if they grow up with that idea that it's okay for authority figures to constantly know what you're doing and tracking you and watching you, like, there's something wrong with that. Like, I think where does that lead to, like, a Big Brother is okay sort of situation?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, no, as Megan was talking, I'm like, yeah, Orwell would just say, well, it was only off by a couple of decades. Yeah. It's really interesting. It makes me reflect upon my own childhood and how simple it was in comparison, obviously. Like, I was a latchkey kid for a while, but it was very basic rules that you understood, and it was pretty simple. It was just real world situations you had to worry about. And it's difficult for me to imagine what it must be like to be a child today with far more factors going on potentially around you, depending upon the technology that you might have access to, or just the technology people around you have access to. So I'm very fascinated to hear that there are discussions going on at that age level about these kind of scenarios, because they're going to be lifelong factors in the lives of those people. Mm-hmm. I just can't imagine what that would have been like for me.
Oh, I know, right? I was reading an interesting article, I think it was last night, on Generation Z, which I don't know if that's the official name, but that's what the series of articles about Generation Z, which is kind of the current generation that's growing up, probably exactly right here, maybe a little bit older, and just how on one hand they're connected in so many ways through technology, that technology is not an option in their life, that it's just a fact of life, and they're connected to people through it, yet they feel so, at the same time, feel so helpless about everything and so disconnected to a certain degree and everything. And I think this just plays right into that, right? Like, from a very early young age, you're talking, even at second grade, you're talking about how government's intentions around encryption, which is a security measure to protect yourself, but this is the government trying to get around it, all that kind of stuff. How does that affect your view of the world as you grow up, if that's the conversation that's happening at such a young age? I don't think it's a bad conversation to have. It's a reality of now, but very interesting. I guess that's why all generations are very different, because they have different influences,
Mm-hmm.
So.
And on the positive side, when we were growing up, we didn't have access in our classroom to videos like you do, the How Stuff Works, and
right.
all those kinds of. I feel like the content that you do, Jonathan, is amazing and really great for classrooms and young kids to understand topics. So we have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. We get mail all the time from teachers and from students who use a lot of the stuff we make as the basis of a report, or they say that they had real trouble understanding a particular concept until they were able to hear our explanations of it. And that includes things like these situations. We try very hard to come through with as objective information as we possibly can get about these. Occasionally we'll do a more editorial side. Like, I've certainly done a podcast about the Apple FBI situation that definitely gave listeners they knew which side I was on. But I made it very clear. I was very transparent in it. But yeah, I I think that that's a positive thing, certainly, that this technology has given us an opportunity to introduce concepts to people of all ages and kind of ease them into thinking critically about them, and not just, ham-fistedly go on one side or the other, but really to take all of the different factors into consideration, because it may very well be that one generation's values are dramatically different from the earlier generations, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a different thing.
Yeah. That's usually the case.
Well, after the break, we'll have more technology stories about whether technology is causing the end of humanity or not. But first, let's take a minute to thank the sponsor of this episode, the Ring Video Doorbell. My name is Megan, and I love my doorbell.
Hi,
I'm
Megan.
not proud of the fact that I love my doorbell.
have a doorbell.
It sounds weird, but I do love it. I really do. It's also a security camera, my eye into the world of what's going on at home while I'm at work. With the Ring Video Doorbell, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world just using your smartphone. Ring's advanced motion detection alerts you even if someone doesn't ring the doorbell. With Ring Video Doorbell, you can talk to delivery people. So let's just say you ordered yourself something special and you've gotten the email that it's due to arrive on your doorstep today, but you are stuck at work. You can see that the delivery person has left the package. You can even talk to the delivery person and tell them to leave the package. You might not be able to open the package until you get home, but you can lovingly look at it through the Ring app until you get home. It's like having a neighbor keep an eye on your home 24/7. As I mentioned before, over the weekend, our car was broken into, not at home. Unfortunately, if it had been at home, I would have had the video of it because the video from my Ring doorbell extends to where my car is parked. Ring's motion detector would have started a recording. Installing Ring takes minutes, and it works with either your current wiring or a built-in rechargeable battery. Ring also has a new advanced Ring Video Doorbell for $249. That starts shipping in late April. This one has a 1080p camera, and it supports 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi in addition to the 2.4 gigahertz. So put your mind at ease and protect your home with the video doorbell that Time Magazine and USA Today named one of their top 10 gadgets. Go to ring.com/TNT for free expedited FedEx shipping. That's ring.com/TNT. With the Ring, you are always home. So, Microsoft has just jumped headfirst into the AI chatbot game with Tay. That's Tay.
What's up, Tay?
Exactly. What's up, Tay? That's what I was doing all day. Tay is an artificially intelligent chatbot developed by Microsoft's technology and research and Bing teams to experiment with and conduct research on conversational understanding. You get to be entertained. Microsoft gets to creep into our conversations. Now, Tay is targeted at 18 to 24-year-olds in the U.S., which Microsoft says are the dominant users of mobile social chat services here. Right now, you can chat with Tay on Twitter, Kik, and GroupMe. Is this a terrible, horrible idea or just an honest way to waste some time?
I think it's a fun way to waste some time. I had a lot of fun chatting with Tay on the Twitter. I don't know. Did you take a look at this, Jonathan?
I have not chatted with Tay yet. As a 40-year-old man, I find it somewhat creepy to talk even with an artificially intelligent construct that is framed in the context of a 19-year-old female. That just seems. I think my wife would have words with me. She'd say, "Look, this is how movies like Her happen."
Right.
Okay. Now, I like the idea that they're rolling it out in this way because obviously, if you're talking about artificial intelligence or machine learning, anything that has to do with learning how we humans do stuff, rolling it on a wide layout like that, like a wide deployment, I should say, gives you a lot more responses a lot faster so that you can start refining things on your end. Not entirely certain that the execution is the most appropriate approach, but the idea behind let's try and set this out in the world and get as much feedback as we possibly can to really dig down and get an AI that is capable of engaging in some form of conversation in what at least approaches a natural manner. That makes sense to me. I just don't know that I would have picked a 19-year-old female persona.
Yeah, that was a weird choice. In my
and you
opinion,
get some.
too.
Yeah, no, I would agree. You get some very awkward, strange kind of replies. There's also no real thread awareness. Like you can start a conversation. Like actually, it reminds me of Eliza. If you ever played or talked to Eliza back at when I was using Commodore 64. It's a text-based psychotherapist essentially, and it was very much one of the early examples of entering any sort of phrase in whatsoever, and it would do a okay job of coming back with a reply that made it sound like it was human and that it was following the conversation and all that kind of stuff. And I talked to Eliza for quite a few times because I had the program, and I was just kind of fascinated by it. This reminds me of that, obviously on a much grander scale. But yeah, very, very interesting, because a lot of the thread kind of gets lost. And if what we're looking to do here is to create a conversation with let's say a robot just a bot that's going to be believable, you kind of need that thread awareness from one question to the next to the next. And it feels with Tay that you're getting a reply to the message you just sent, not necessarily a reply to your conversation. You know what I mean? I
think Microsoft's intention is entertainment purely. That's what they're not selling this as like, here's someone you can really chat with that will really understand. They're trying to entertain you while they gather all of this data, and
yes.
And I say it was a weird choice for 19 to 24-year-old, but clearly that's where the data they have. I mean, those are the most texts probably sent by 19 to 24-year-old girls, would be my guess. They text the most, more than anyone. So that's probably why they have all this information. It's definitely a work in progress, and like anything that gets released on the internet like this, I mean, it just went wild and crazy, and you could find all kinds of examples. Like I said on Twitter, I asked her how old she was. She said 19. Then she said she likes getting drunk at the Outback, which is not illegal.
Weird. Right.
I mean, not legal.
Right.
Somebody else asked her, what are your thoughts on women's rights? And her answer was, is that a thing?
Wow. I like that we've just discovered Microsoft thinks Outback doesn't card.
Yeah.
That's the headline, Jonathan.
Exactly. I know. It's like, that's some weird branding.
But I mean, you can see how this technology could be used in Microsoft products. Like if you look at Cortana in Windows 10, like they take the information they gain from here, they beef up Cortana's usefulness so that she becomes more of a digital personal assistant and less of I know that she can do these 5 or 6 things really well, and I don't mind just talking to my computer to get something done as opposed to typing it or clicking on a mouse. I certainly see it being used in that respect. I think they could have just gone with a non-gender specific robot approach if they wanted to, and it would have worked just as well. I think of the Twitter accounts that were made for things like the Mars rovers and the Mars probes, and people got emotionally attached to these things that they don't have emotion or thought. They're just things that are just doing a job. And when they were unable to do the job anymore, people posted tributes. When you talk about opportunity or spirit or any of those going offline, people got emotional. So to me, trying to frame it in a person is not necessarily the right way to go. Without it getting creepy pretty fast. But again, that might also be because I'm 40. and so in my mind, it just seems inappropriate to have these conversations with a 19-year-old female persona.
Maybe Microsoft will come out with an army of robots of all different walks of life to communicate with. But I don't know. Like another thought that I had along that line is maybe they picked that because right now talking to bots is very kind of, I don't know if fragmented is the right word, but can be very random anyways. So maybe framing it in, let's say, kind of a younger demographic where we already know kind of how a lot of people kind of communicate online. Like it's kind of a fragmented type of communication. It's definitely very different from the traditional, I'm going to start a sentence and then finish it and put the right exclamation point at the end and blah, blah, blah. Like it's very, it's an evolving kind of language, just the art of talking on the internet nowadays. And maybe framing it as like a younger, a robot of the younger generation might actually kind of make it seem like it's a little more accurate and a little bit more modern and conversational. I don't know. I don't know. That's a guess.
I mean, if they're trying to test our emotional response to robots,
And
I think it will.
to it.
Yeah, I mean, because you and I both, Jonathan, had our emotional response. Like, you thought it was creepy. I suddenly wanted to become her mom. Like, I was like, don't invite all these people into DMs. Don't do that. Respect yourself, Tay. And then she
I'm
started
just kind of
ignoring
fascinated
me.
by it. I'm just kind of fascinated to see where the thread goes based on what random thing you throw at it. That's.
I can't wait for the inevitable various chat logs between Tay and other chatbots that because you know that's going to happen. That's
forever.
Well, that's classic because I mean every time a new chatbot comes out, someone ends up pitting it against older chatbots or different chatbots, and then that's when you really start seeing the limitations of this conversational approach. That you really see these circular conversations that don't go anywhere, and because neither party can recognize that it's not going anywhere, it just continues forever.
Keeps going. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the suggested next word in like a Swift keyboard or whatever. And if you just keep tapping it to see where the conversation, where your little thread goes, and you're right, it always seems to kind of at some point go in a circle and go back around and everything again. So. Interesting to say the least. TNT's fan of the day is Cherry Swan, who sent us this picture saying it's, quote, not the ideal way to watch, because she's not actually watching, but how I listen to TNT, auxed into her car stereo setup. Cherry, it may not be ideal, but I'm positive you are not alone. You are one of many who check out the show in exactly the same way. So there you go, strength in numbers. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of your setup yourself, post it to Instagram, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we're going to find it. And finally, after this, what will it take in the future when you want to extract a pesky drone from the sky? We're going to show you. But first, let's take a minute to thank the sponsor of this episode, and that's ZipRecruiter. If you're hiring and you're not sure where to find the best candidates, if you're a business owner, your company is only as good as the people that you hire. You need help. Posting jobs in one place is not enough to find quality candidates. It's difficult. Short staffing, further complicates things because it doesn't leave very much time for you to do all that work, to post on all those job sites, manage them, know where to go, all that kind of stuff. Thanks to ZipRecruiter.com, you can make your life a whole lot easier. You can post to 100+ job sites with one single click, and you'll be instantly matched to candidates from all over the service. Over 12 million resumes that it's matched against. Just post once, within 24 hours, you'll watch as the candidates just kind of roll into the ZipRecruiter interface. It's all easy to use, totally set up to make it so that you don't have to spend a whole lot of time trying to get that information and get those people. It's easy to use. ZipRecruiter has been used by over 800,000 businesses, and you can try it now for free for yourself to see what we're talking about. Getting the right people for your company is incredibly important. Scott, who's a happy ZipRecruiter client, said, the recruiting process used to be so painful. Before I'd post to several places, get a million resumes, but only a few responses from qualified candidates. It was torture. But with ZipRecruiter, we post once, we get qualified candidates in one easy-to-review place. We've actually hired some of our best employees using ZipRecruiter. That's what it's all about. And you should check it out for yourself. You can try ZipRecruiter for free. All you have to do is go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT and take it for a spin. See what you think. We thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today.
Finally, tonight, we leave you with this video from the Department of Defense of a soldier shooting down a drone with a cyber rifle made with an antenna, a Wi-Fi radio, a cheap Raspberry Pi, and you can watch it right now if you're watching.
Don't do it.
And the drone fell right to the feet of Secretary of Defense Ash Carter. I love this. I love cyber rifles.
Jonathan Strickland, how does this work?
Simple. You're jamming the radio signal that sends the commands to the Parrot AR drone to fly. If you can overpower the signal, this is actually as the piece says, it is a known weakness, known vulnerability for the Parrot drone. So the question is, can you actually port that same experience to other drones, tuning it to the correct frequency to overload any of the commands sent from the radio controller, in which case the drone becomes inert. It just stops working. And honestly, I really much prefer this approach to making a drone come out of the sky than trying to shoot projectiles at it.
Yeah, or any gun, regular guns. I support this versus.
Well, we've seen birds that are trained to swoop over and grab the drone. There are a million ways to steal a drone out of the sky.
I do like the rise in falconry. That is excellent. Yeah.
I do too. I will say we have a better version of this. Kara, it's the next link down. When I first saw the original, my main complaint is that it doesn't have the stereotypical laser sound. And now, go ahead and turn the audio up. Yeah, there is sound. And we'll go ahead and see what it really should be in reality. Maybe someday they'll work on it and they'll do it.
For our audio listeners, you get the idea of what a cyber rifle sounds like when it's been photoshopped.
Yeah, not quite real. That's not authentic extracted audio, but maybe someday, I don't know, or maybe like the laser tag sound.
That needs to be followed up with like the Emperor voice about now you will see what a fully operational cyber rifle can do, that sort of thing.
Yes.
I love it.
All right, Jonathan Strickland, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have a video on where hiccups come from. I saw that recently. What else do you have up, or what are you working on that you can tell us about?
Gosh, well, I mean, I've done a ton of videos from South by Southwest came out. So I've been talking about autonomous cars. That was a big topic. AI, robots, human-robot interaction, which to me is a fascinating field because the idea of how do you design a robot so that the humans around the robot know how to act? So it's actually programming things into a robot that do not directly benefit the robot. They benefit us so that we can be social around robots. It's psychology and robotics and engineering, so it's awesome. Anyway, if you want to see all that, you should go to now.howstuffworks.com. That's our more newsish website. So we've got our howstuffworks.com for all of our evergreen articles about how everything you can imagine works. And at now.howstuffworks.com, you can learn about really cool stories and how they actually unfold and what do they mean. And I have a new video going up every Wednesday, or at least I'm shooting every Wednesday. Typically on Wednesdays, one of my videos goes up. So go check that out.
Yeah, you've got a lot of work going up there. I was getting lost in the site earlier today. Like, you just get smarter going to howstuffworks.com. So
that's our goal.
Yep, that's what it's all about. Jonathan Strickland, always a pleasure getting you on the show. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Right on. We'll talk to you soon. Tomorrow's guest will be Aaron Carson from Tech Republic. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. UTC. Just go to twit.tv/live. You can be a part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. You can also leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. And you can find us on Twitter. We are at Tech News Today TV.
You can subscribe to our show at twit.tv/TNT and subscribe to the Twit newsletter at twit.tv/newsletter. And if you want to find me on Twitter, I am at Megan Morrone, constantly tweeting at chatbots.
Until you go to bed, and then you'll do it in the morning again, I'm sure. I'm at Jason Howell on Twitter. I think I'm done chatting with tweetbots or tweeting at
now that you know
bots.
It's creepy.
Yeah, I know. Apparently I shouldn't do that anymore. Thanks to our technical director, Kara Cole, and all the folks who help us produce this show every single day. And thanks to you for talking tech with us today. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye, everyone.